Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Toby Miller. I am currently in Calgary, Canada, and today we're going to be talking about amnesia. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. Amnesia is basically just a general term to describe memory loss. It could mean short-term memory loss, it could mean long-term memory loss. It typically refers to short-term memory loss. So basically when you cannot retain information from your past, and it is completely common. Most people have experienced it, and we're gonna discuss 4 different types of amnesia today. First, you got anterograde amnesia. This means you cannot obtain new information. You cannot learn a new skill, you can't learn a new language, you are just physically not able to learn anything new. After that, you have retrograde amnesia, and this means that a person forgets events from their past, and this is the most common type of amnesia. You know, you hit your head and you can't remember how it happened, or you can't remember someone's name. It's very common. I'm sure you experienced it, or you know someone who has experienced it. After that, you got infantile amnesia, and this is the inability to remember the first few months or the first few years of your life. I know I personally suffer from this. I couldn't tell you what my first few months or first few years on Earth were like, but I have stories to tell me about it. And then the fourth kind is Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is by far the worst case of amnesia. It's a progressive disorder which causes brain cells to degenerate and die. It is the most common cause of dementia. It basically makes it so you are not able to function independently, and there's currently a medication out there that can temporarily help your severity of Alzheimer's, but as of right now there's no treatment. There's studies out there to find a cure and to find exactly how this condition is caused, but as of right now there's no treatment. So when you experience one of these 4 types of amnesia, it is affecting one of the 4 pillars of memory in your brain. You know, first being your short-term memory. Short-term memory is when new information is stored in your brain for a brief period of time, and if it's not further processed, it goes away. Then you got long-term memory. If the information from short-term memory is further processed and practiced, it moves to your long-term memory and it stays in your brain for longer. After long-term, we got declarative memory, and these are conscious memories of information and events you've experienced. So something you've experienced in your life or an event that took place, these are memories from those. And then after that, we got non-declarative memories, and these are habits. These are habits like driving a car and riding a bike. These are things that are built and burned into your brain that you really don't have to think about before you go out and do them. And when these get affected, you get one of these types of amnesia. There are so many different types of causes that can cause one of these different types of amnesia. You know, first you got head injuries, then you got severe illness, high fever, seizures, emotional shock, drugs and alcohol is a huge cause, stroke, brain surgeries, and the list goes on from there, you know. And I mean, the severity of amnesia really depends on how it was caused. You know, a concussion or a seizure temporarily disrupt the electrical activity in the brain and prevent short-term memory from working properly. The stress of a traumatic event may also interfere with the processing of short-term memories. These episodes of amnesia are usually temporary. They're not long-term. And then you got your more severe cases of memory loss that might be permanent. Brain trauma or some types of brain surgery might damage the vital memory structures. These types of memory loss experiences depend on which part of the brain are affected. In Alzheimer's disease, the person typically remembers the past events and gets memory loss dating from the onset of their condition. It's actually awful. When one of these causes happens and the severity happens, you know, you usually get diagnosed by a doctor. You know, you go to the doctor and they examine your medical history, and sometimes in cases like Alzheimer's, it could be genetic, or they give you a general examination where they test your eyes and see if you're suffering from a concussion, one of the less critical causes, and then they'll give you a head x-ray. They could do blood testing or CT scanning, or if, in some cases, you know, they do this for athletes a lot, where when you're healthy, you take a test where it determines your short-term memory capacity and your long-term memory capacity, and they keep it on file. Then when you hit your head, you go and you take this test again, and it determines whether or not you have a concussion or you have suffered a traumatic brain injury. And all these are very, very great ways to determine whether you're suffering from amnesia. As for treatment, you know, like I said previously, there's not a final fix for Alzheimer's, the most severe cause of amnesia. And then when it comes to the less severe causes, you know, there's not a medication to treat this. It's more, you can go talk to a therapist, or your doctor will tell you to rest or turn all the lights off and sleep as much as you can. You know, there's not a specific treatment for such events, but you know, each person's different. And if you do suffer from one of these cases of amnesia, you should go see a doctor, and they'll tell you, you know, how you can help yourself as much as possible to get rid of it. I personally have experienced amnesia firsthand, so I can tell you what it is like to experience short-term memory loss and even long-term memory loss. You know, back in 2011, I was skateboarding and I fell and suffered pretty close to what you could call a traumatic brain injury. I got a very bad concussion. I ended up cracking my skull little over 1.5 inches, and my brain was bleeding basically. I ended up getting airlifted from Mammoth Lakes to Reno, Nevada, and I spent a week in the hospital. And because my head injury was so severe, I still to this day don't remember the time spent in the hospital, the week leading up to the accident, and really the month after the accident. That whole block is just completely gone. And you know, that is such a severe case of amnesia that is so awful, but it's so common with athletes and people who hit their heads. So that happened to me, and then 2 years after that, I ended up hitting my head again snowboarding. It was not nearly as severe, but once again, I don't remember how it happened. I don't remember that day, really. I remember coming to in the hospital. I wasn't knocked out, but basically my brain won't recall any information leading up to that event, it happening up until 4 hours later, until I was in the hospital bed. And you know, there's so many cases out there of people who talk about amnesia and what it's like, and it is a real thing. And I would love to hear some of your guys' stories about it, and I'd love to, you know, talk to some people about their experiences with amnesia. And I hope you guys learned a lot about amnesia. I know I definitely learned a ton from researching this and, you know, getting to understand the brain a little bit more. And it's very soothing to understand that this is such a common thing to happen, and that I'm not going crazy. So thanks for watching, and yeah, hope you enjoyed.